I think it's absolutely amazing for families who are affected by mitochondrial disease. I think the science has provided a way of providing hope and light at the end of the tunnel, which we certainly didn't have previously.
A way that some people are saying means a child will end up with 3 parents.
I would disagree. For those who don't understand mitochondrial disease at a very basic, fundamental level, it's about batteries not working at a cellular level. So what Doug Turnbull and his team in Newcastle have actually fundamentally done is found a way to replace bad batteries with good batteries.
Rannan, this inevitably raises huge ethical questions, doesn't it?
It does, though I think this particular development actually is not such a huge ethical problem, but I think it's the ones that people are worried about are what will happen subsequently. Is this at the beginning of a slippery slope? That's the sort of worry that people who object to this, and I can't say that I do myself, raise.
But it's a fair point, isn't it?
It's a fair point. I think the slippery slope argument applies in all sorts of circumstances. Indeed, you could say it applies for every new development that arises. But the issue is to decide whether the slope is too slippery to try it out or not. If you took a sort of very radical view that everything that had a slippery slope ahead, you just didn't do it, you'd have no progress whatsoever.
Well, yes, it's one thing progressing in other areas of science, entirely another genetically modifying human beings, though.
It is a different thing, but on the other hand, it's not necessarily a bad thing. The issue, it seems to me, is are there good consequences? Are there bad consequences? Do people's autonomy get affected and undermined? And is it just or fair? Those are the sort of 4 basic principles that I find very helpful. And applying those in this case, I don't see that overall it's a problem.
The other difficult questions, Paul, that opponents to this raise are along the lines of, well, these things are meant to happen. There are too many people in the world, etc., etc. And I'm sure these are questions you've asked yourself in the middle of the night, because no one else can really know what it's like to have children with mitochondrial disease unless they do themselves.
There's varying types of mitochondrial disease. The way it's affecting my children, having lost one child to this, and we have Stacey and Kieran now, 16 and 20 respectively, watching them wither away in front of you, muscle wasting, bone problems, nerve pain, muscle pains, various different medical ailments, and now they survive daily on morphine and methadone. I mean, to actually hear the word methadone being used in a medicine to help with pain is frighteningly hard. And I wouldn't wish any parent to go through that. And anybody who says it's meant to happen, well, if it's meant to happen, then we should maybe bring in euthanasia, because, you know, you wouldn't let a dog suffer the way I've seen my children suffer.
But the way this is being proposed is on a case-by-case basis. Because MPs have voted for it doesn't mean it's going to start happening tomorrow. They've provided the framework for this to happen. Even so, are you concerned in any way that this could open the door to other things like, well, designer babies is the term being used?
I would say, and I speak from being on the HFEA mitochondrial overview group as an advisor and parent, that everything that was discussed in the background, the run-up to the, if you like, the public consultation period around 12 months ago, guidelines were already set up at that point. That, as my colleague says, you know, these guidelines have to be absolutely concrete, and I think all laboratories will be monitored incredibly closely, and that is a good thing. That has to happen.
Rannan, though, they might be monitored now. People, again, concerned that somewhere down the line, these babies are going to be born, they're going to grow up to be adults. Are they going to be monitored all the way through their life? Because then their genetically modified genes will be in the wider gene pool, won't they?
I think it would be a very good thing to monitor the effects of all these developments, because if it turns out in the long run that they are problematical, and it's a possibility, though highly unlikely given all the work that's been done, then we'll know not to continue it. But far more likely is that we'll find that it's actually very beneficial, as it's expected to be, and indeed I suspect that there'll be new developments in genetics that will also be beneficial. The important thing is to keep a very careful eye on it, and I think that the HFEA is a very impressive body that does exactly that.